Once again, you're listening to the Paul McGUIRE Report. I'm Paul McGUIRE. Okay, we're going to continue in on our deep dive of truth. So we have an ever-present problem. It's been past tense. No, after COVID, there's been many good changes. There's been a sizable number of people who have gone through a kind of awakening, if you will. And for that, we're very thankful. But in light of the enormity of the overall problem, we still have a long way to go. Why? Because there are things on the horizon in America and the world that are literally catastrophic and cataclysmic. And in a very strange way, Epstein, as perverse and deranged, well, he's way beyond deranged, sociopathic, he's the equivalent of an Adolf Hitler. He just did it with a twinkle in his eyes, at least to the girls. Okay, so what was Epstein about? Well, first of all, we are left with a real big clue. These ritual temples of Isis. There's a spiritual connection between the ritual temples of Isis that were on Epstein Islands and things like the giant owl statue in the Bohemian Grove in San Francisco, where the world's elites, including U.S. presidents, would gather. And there's also a connection between the temple of Baal and Baal worship that was brought from the Middle East to Manhattan Island, so that Manhattan Island would have its own real temple of Baal worship. There's a deep underground connection here. And it's pointing to, all of these things and more are pointing to the very real possibility that there is an invisible and hidden ruling structure that exists in the world, that exists in America, that is very powerful. These are the men and women that control the world. And they are part of what you would call the globalist elite, consisting of billionaire and trillionaire families. But that's not just it. They have enormous wealth, and they control the international and global and national monetary systems. Epstein was hooked into that. Epstein became very adept at manipulating international finance through the help of some of his trillionaire, billionaire friends. And Epstein would then buy people's favor, buy people's friendship, buy people's information by making massive donations to prestigious institutions like Harvard and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. He would curry favor by paying or investing big amounts of money into these institutions and more. But Epstein was going after a deeper pursuit. What we're reading now that's coming out of this flood of Epstein information is that this guy, Epstein, was obsessed with using secret laboratories, and he built secret laboratories at various locations, like the secret laboratories that exist at Zorro Ranch. He would build these secret DNA genetic modifying laboratories, and his goal was to tweak or change the genetic code or the DNA code in the effort of creating a new master race. This is according to him. His goal was to create a new master race with the secret laboratories he was investing in and the secret laboratories that were hidden in the ground floor of the Zorro Ranch. He built these secret laboratories to genetically modify the DNA to create a master race of human beings. And the quirk of the whole thing is that a central component of his dreamed of master race creation was that he wanted to use his own personal DNA and his own personal DNA code to build this master race. Now, think about how heavy this is, and think about how this travels the hidden corridors of power. Think about the fact that Adolf Hitler, the head of the Nazi movement, was all about creating a genetically modified, a DNA modified master race. See the similarity between Hitler and Epstein? Both wanted a master race. And where did Hitler get his ideas and conceptions regarding how to create a master race? Well, Hitler apparently got his ideas and his science on how to create a master race from the Rockefeller family and from the Rockefeller laboratories in the East Coast off the Hudson River in New York State. There were Rockefeller-sponsored, Rockefeller-funded secret genetic laboratories that were designed to weed out the inferior races, according to the Rockefeller people, and create, through DNA modification, a master race. So this was a hidden scientific process, but somehow Adolf Hitler and his scientists got a hold of the DNA engineering blueprints. They got a hold of the scientific methods that the Rockefellers were using to create a master race in Cold Springs, New York. I've been there. I've spent a lot of time in Cold Springs, New York. I knew somebody that I knew well lived in Cold Spring Harbor, New York. And it's a very nice place for all practical purposes, but it obviously has these hidden DNA laboratories that were designed to build a master race. Connect this with this entire obsession with the master race. It goes back to H.G. Wells, the science fiction writer, War of the Worlds, and H.G. Wells, the proponent of a master race, and H.G. Wells, a proponent of the New World Order. H.G. Wells was a key New World Order intellectual and a promoter of the master race. He was very interconnected with Aldous Huxley and Julian Huxley. Again, we see the trail. Julian Huxley was the father of transhumanism. Aldous Huxley was the author of Brave New World, and Julian Huxley was head of the United Nations UNESCO department. That's the UN's Global Education and Science Division. And so the UN was set up with Rockefeller money to create a global government, and the elite classes like the Huxleys and H.G. Wells and many others, the elite classes of Great Britain, they secretly wanted to create a master race, but simultaneously they wanted to reduce the world's human population. They wanted to reduce that population as fast as possible. In fact, they wanted to reduce the human population of Earth by billions of people in a very short period of time. And so euthanasia, which is the science of believing that man's number one problem is excessive population growth, and euthanasia seeks to employ all kinds of methodologies to radically reduce the population of planet Earth, like starvation, like food shortages, water shortages, biological warfare, nuclear warfare, chemical warfare. All of these things are used as tools to reduce the population of Earth. And so these people are dead set serious on this. What they're in the process of doing, in the simplest terms, you and I need to come to grips with this. What they are in the process of doing, in the simplest terms, is to take down the existing remnants of whatever's left of a Judeo-Christian worldview and the Judeo-Christian rule of America and the world. The elite want to take that down and replace it with a Luciferian / satanic control of the world and radically reduce the world's population. You see, what the Luciferian elite believe, the World Economic Forum, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, what the Luciferian elite people believe, they believe the antithesis, they believe the opposite of what God teaches in His Word. So God is quite clear in His Word that His mandate to mankind has over and over been this. He said it to Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. So fruitfulness, multiplication of babies and other things is God's mandate. And then after the flood judgment of Noah, God says to Noah and his family a similar refrain. God says to Noah and his family, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. So why is it that the Bill Gates and the heads of the software companies and the globalist elite and the heads of the intelligence agencies and the other billionaire, trillionaire families, why is it that they are antichrist in their philosophies? They are diametrically opposed to God's mandate. They do not believe for a nanosecond that we're supposed to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. They believe in a mythology, which is a polite way of saying they believe in a lie. They want to not multiply the human race. They want to devastate the human race as fast as possible. Because you see, they fundamentally do not believe in the existence of the infinite personal living God of the universe. And because they have rejected a fundamental component that validates this reality, and that fundamental component is simply this, that the world, that creation, that humanity, that the birds, the fishes, all species, that everything in this physical reality that we see was created by a loving God, the Creator, capital C. And that in His omniscience, all-knowingness, He pre-planned for mankind to be fruitful and multiply. He created the earth in such a way, from the beginning, God created the earth in such a way that no matter how many people resulted in Adam and Eve's obedience to being fruitful and multiplying, the way God created the earth and the heavens and the sea, He created it in such a way that earth, listen to this, it's so dynamic, it's so mind-blowing. God created the earth in such a way that it is always, and it will always be, completely and comfortably sustainable. No matter what levels of population mankind could achieve in obeying be fruitful and multiply, no matter what happened, God created the earth in such a way that it has the full capacity to be sustainable no matter how many trillions of people are the byproduct of being fruitful and multiply. And you say, well, that's crazy. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense if you're trying to perceive it and process it with half a brain. Let's face it. Modern science has said many, many times, you've heard it, I've heard it, that human beings today, human beings on the earth, are only actually utilizing about 10% of their brain power. And that means 90% of our brain power is not being used. So let's just take that at face value for a minute. If it is true that 90% of our brain power is not being used, then why on earth would we have any confidence at all in our ability to anticipate, our ability to analyze how many people the earth could potentially be sustainable for? If we have 90% of our brain not functioning, then it should be it should be obvious to us, for crying out loud, that we're not intellectually capable of solving that basic equation. Added to that, it's very simple. God has never been an idiot. God created the earth in such a way. Let's just say hypothetically, this could never happen because it's a total improbability, but let's just say hypothetically it did. Let's say for whatever reason that the population of planet Earth, through being fruitful and multiply, began to grow 10 times greater than any pre-planned capacity that God created in terms of making the earth sustainable. Let's just say that the projections by God were wrong, which again is totally impossible, and the population growth skyrocketed. Okay, if that happened, it could never happen, but if it did happen, God would simply have noticed it as it was climbing to a dangerous ratio, and he would have set up a series of historical, scientific, technical encounters for mankind, which would have allowed mankind to design, develop, and invent space travel at such a level that the moment the population of Earth came anywhere near being potentially dangerous and non-sustainable, mankind would have been programmed by God to have invented, developed, and created an entirely large level of new sciences and technologies that would have allowed us to create giant spaceships, giant rockets that could effectively travel to places like Mars and back. And so in order to accommodate an unpredicted, overwhelming avalanche of births, God could have had mankind easily. It's a no-brainer. God could have made mankind aware of the fact that rockets could be built, space-traveling vehicles could be built that would transport mankind, and the excessive population could be transported from planet Earth to Mars in an effective way. And then God would have set it up so we could have created massive colonies, massive underground bases under the surface of Mars and other planets, and massive domed cities on Mars and other planets. In other words, what I'm suggesting to you is what should be obvious to begin with by simply observing creation. God has never been even remotely stupid. If God thought for 1 nanosecond that there was a dangerous threshold being reached regarding overpopulation, he would have interjected himself in the development of mankind and made available to mankind all kinds of powerful new technologies in which space travel and the transporting of millions, if not in total billions of people over time from Earth to Mars, and then building dome cities upon Mars or deep underground bases on Mars, that technology and that colonization of Mars and other planets would have circumvented any problem. Okay, you're listening to the Paul McGUIRE Report. I'm Paul McGUIRE. That's just one of a number of things that we should consider. Now, back to Epstein. Well, before we get to Epstein, I need you to visit paulmcguire.us. That's paulmcguire.us. These messages contain content that have the power to change people's perspective, their worldview, and they function as vehicles for pre-evangelism. But that involves a spiritual battle and a war of communication. I'm asking you to pray for this ministry, to pray for me, to pray for everybody involved in this ministry. And I'm asking you to like and follow our various social media platforms. And then I'm simply asking that you would simply ask God, what would you have me give or donate or contribute financially to Paul McGUIRE Ministries? And whatever God puts on your heart, simply obey him. And you can do that safely and securely by going to paulmcguire.us. You see, the dark side, if you will, like Epstein, he has unlimited funds because he's doing very evil things. And people who are very evil and have a lot of money are quick to spend their money to satisfy their evil desires and to protect their evil lives. So I need God's people to rally around the things that they believe are of God. That's all. That's all what it comes down to. Okay, let's go a little more wide open on this and continue to take the deep dive and then come up with doable answers. This is Paul McGUIRE. Visit paulmcguire.us.